It is Peru's worst single environmental disaster on its Pacific coast. More than 10,000 barrels of oil poured into the sea and washed up on the country's beaches due to a botched tanker delivery. The black slick has been pushed north by winds and currents and now covers an area twice the size of Manhattan, more than 100 square kilometers. It's devastated one of the world's richest marine ecosystems, killing countless fish and leaving in its wake hundreds of seabirds coated with oil. It has also paralyzed small-scale fishing and tourism, the pillars of the coastal economy at this time of year. It's the height of summer in Peru, and normally this beach north of Lima would be full of holidaymakers. Now the only people you can find are these cleanup workers scrubbing crude oil from the rocks. The spill happened just north of Lima in mid-January at La Pampilla refinery, operated by the Spanish energy giant Repsol. Its scope has grown far beyond early expectations, as the company initially reported only a tiny leak, amounting to about 7 gallons. The true amount is many thousands of times more. The company finally admitted that it spilled more than 10,400 barrels. More than a month since the spill, Repsol claims the cleanup has advanced by more than 80%. It hired local workers as well as international experts to deal with the oil slick. But the impact on local fishermen has been devastating.
Ahorita esto ya estuviera concurrente, bastante bañista estuviera ya. Pero mira consecuencias, los kioscos, todo, mira lo que...
Estamos en verano, pues.
Todo, a todos. Y es una pena que se haya causado este desastre. Así como lo ven nosotros, mire, todos los días estamos en este mismo reuniones que tenemos.
Salcedo and nearly 50 artisanal fishermen in Aukayama must rely on food donations shared in a common pot known as an olla común. He says they have received no compensation from the company. The spill has wiped out the fish they used to catch, while any they can find they cannot sell as it's unfit for human consumption. So abundant was the fish, sea bass and sole, as well as octopus and crab, that it could be caught with a fishing line from the cliff, says Marcelo Muñoz.
El día más bajo era de 100 soles así diario, pero cuando se pesca bien ya pasa de los 200, 300.
Diario?
Sí, pero con pescado fino. Pues.
They are among some 2,000 coastal fishermen impacted on a 40-kilometer stretch of coastline, says Juan Carlos Suero, fisheries director at NGO Oceana Peru.
Nosotros lo que hemos estimado es el valor de las pesquerías costeras en un año en Ancón y en Chancay. Hemos obtenido $2.3 millones, el valor anual de esa pesquería para ambos lugares.
Suero added that the economic impact went beyond the fishermen.
Nosotros hemos hecho la estimación de la pesca artesanal, porque es lo que conocemos, es lo que tenemos información, pero en Ventanilla, en Ancón, aquí en Aukayama, hay negocios asociados al verano, ¿no es cierto?, de comida, de sombra, de diversos servicios, transporte, que han sido cancelados abruptamente, además, ¿no?, desde el 15 de enero, y creemos que ellos también tienen que tener una estimación.
In late February, Repsol Peru's president Jaime Fernández Cuesta said the company would help.
Con los afectados, pues estamos llegando o tratando de llegar a ellos a través de las distintas asociaciones que los representan. Hemos llegado a acuerdos con muchos de ellas que alcanzan ya a más de 3.000 personas. Estos acuerdos inicialmente están siendo para ayudas principalmente económicas de subsistencia en estas semanas que no están pudiendo trabajar.
However, in the affected area, people say they are still waiting for Repsol's help. Meanwhile, the knock-on effect on the ecosystem is much harder to calculate. As time passes, the thick black crude is less visible. But, as we discovered, the toxic impact lingers. We're about 20 kilometers from where the oil spill first occurred, and the damage is not immediately apparent until you come to the islands where the seabirds live. And here you can see there are birds dead and dying, and Peru's National Park Service are recovering them. About 10 kilometers from the fishing port of Ancon, the Fishermen's Islands, or Islas de Pescadores, is a protected marine reserve. They are home to almost 200,000 seabirds, including rare Humboldt penguins and other species like sea lions and locally endangered otters.
No, está muerto en la isla, allá.
Using binoculars, park guards count the birds, which have oil stains on their plumage. Also, they recover dead birds, between 10 to 20 every day, says vet Giancarlo Inga.
Inicialmente muchas se pueden haber muerto por el petróleo, tapándole los orificios nasales, dañándole totalmente las plumas. Y como explicaba hace un rato, con los siguientes días, con las siguientes semanas, el petróleo va a dañar tanto la calidad de las plumas que la calidad de ser impermeable se va a perder, ¿no? Esa característica al momento de perderse va a hacer que los animales mueran por hipotermia.
Other birds starve to death because they can no longer dive for fish, he said, or over time may become poisoned from ingesting oil as they use their beaks to clean their feathers.
Esta es una experiencia difícil para todos los que están acá. Creemos que esto va a continuar a largo plazo. Ocasionalmente se va a encontrar algunas aves. Gracias, Tony.
Nonetheless, some birds, like this Peruvian booby, are found alive, but only around half of those rescued survive. Meanwhile, the fishermen struggle.
La verdad que nosotros hubiéramos preferido 1000 veces la pandemia a que pase esto, porque prácticamente ahora acá nos han atado de manos. No podemos salir a trabajar.
Repsol says it's advancing with the cleanup, but that makes no difference to the loss of income for the fishermen, who may not be able to fish for years ahead. Fernández Cuesta played down the environmental impact.
Todos los modelos que estamos analizando y que son patrocinados estos modelos por las principales asociaciones medioambientales y oceanográficas del mundo, indican que la afectación en este caso debería ser bastante limitada.
The Spanish firm estimates the cleanup will cost $65 million, not including fines or compensation payments. It has so far paid more than $400,000 in environmental fines and will likely have to pay more. But Peru has a poor track record of holding big business to account for pollution. The former Peruvian Environment Minister and COP President, Manuel Pulgar Vidal, told CGTN.
Environmental Oversight Agency has the possibility to define concrete actions to the company. And I hope, and that should be the way to proceed, that this oversight agency should demand Repsol not only for the cleanup, the current cleanup, or the rehabilitation, but also to make them obliged to adopt monitoring, permanent monitoring for the next at least 5 years, because something that it is unfortunately very sad, and we have to recognize, it is that it is almost impossible to recover all the oil when you have a spill. The literature is saying that it is impossible. At least 30% of the oil will remain in the ocean.
Pulgar Vidal, now climate and energy global practice leader at WWF International, adds under Peru's strict liability law, Repsol is ultimately responsible for the spill.
All the evidence showed that they were not well prepared, that they didn't have equipment, they didn't have teams, they didn't have the people to address and to immediately start to cut this spill, to constrain the spill, and to use all the equipment needed to avoid the spread of the spill in our coast. So it is about the origin, but also it is about the lack of competency to react when the spill started to happen.
Even so, the firm first blamed the eruption of a volcano in Tonga for causing the abnormal waves which triggered the spill. Then its representatives in Peru said the Italian oil tanker Mare Doricum shifted positions abnormally during the oil discharge, allegations the tanker company denies.
Es un hecho objetivo y demostrado no solo por nosotros, sino por todos los peritos navales que están haciendo peritaje de la situación, que el origen de este accidente es un movimiento descontrolado del buque de más de 50 metros que produjo la ruptura de nuestra instalación submarina de descarga. Efectivamente, en base a esto, nosotros hemos interpuesto acciones contra la naviera.
The huge sums of money involved mean the finger-pointing will continue and could reach Peru's courts. The toll on the ecosystem and the fishermen, however, was immediate, and that will take years to recover.